Connecting to server, and we're recording.
Alrighty. You want me to get started?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. My name is Ms. Ledbetter. I'm the scholarship advisor at CollegeBound. And once I find my presentation, we can get started. Here we go. Alrighty. So today we're going to be discussing how much it costs to go to college, what financial aid is, where it comes from, and how we get it. So the cost of attendance, the Office of Financial Aid for each school will come up with a budget, and that is called the cost of attendance. And it's just an estimate of how much money you'll be required to pay in order to go to college for 1 year. So you want to keep in mind that the price that you see when you're looking at tuition and fees is only going to be for 1 year. So you'll have to pay that every year that you're in school. And that's also called the sticker price. And that's just going to be the total amount that you see for 1 year for your school or the schools that you're looking at attending. And it's an estimate of both direct expenses and indirect expenses. So direct expenses are going to be what you have to pay in order to, actually start school. So it's going to be all of your tuition, your fees, room and board. So all of these things have to be paid before you actually, start attending classes. And this is what it's billed. And this is what you'll get in the mail, and you'll have to actually pay that. The indirect expenses are not paid directly to the school, but they're associated with the school costs. So that's going to be all of your books, your supplies, travel, and personal expenses. These are things that, as I mentioned before, you don't have to pay to the college, but it's associated with the cost of attendance. So both of these things, the direct expenses and the indirect expenses, both make up the cost of attendance for 1 year. And these are just some cost of attendance from 2019 to 2020, starting at lowest is BCCC is about $20,000. And then the most expensive on this list is McDaniel, around $60,000. So you can see how much it costs for you to attend school. And just keep in mind that these prices that you see is just for 1 year. So, today we're going to be talking about how you actually come up with enough money to pay for school. And you'll never pay this amount directly out of pocket. So we do have tools called the net price calculator. If you go to the school's website, you should be able to find the net price calculator on that. On the school's website, and it gives you an estimate of the net price, and it can tell you the difference between the sticker price, so that cost of attendance, and then it will subtract the your estimated grants and scholarships that you may be eligible for based on the information that you put in. And the sticker price includes the the direct expenses and direct expenses. And the net price calculator will subtract the difference between the sticker price and all of the scholarships and grants you may get. And this is just an example of that. So it's going to ask you a few questions, like your age, if you're planning on living on or off campus, if you're eligible for state tuition, and based on the information that you put, it'll give you a breakdown of the cost of attendance, and then, as I mentioned, the grants and scholarships that you may or may not be eligible for. So as you see on this screen, it gives you a total cost of attendance of a little over $21,000, and it gives you an estimate for the Pell Grant at $5,700, and then the EA grant at $3,000. And then they also give you an estimate of $5,500 for loans. So these two, the estimate, the grants and the loans is what is going to be your your financial aid. And then it says that the estimate remaining cost is around a little over $7,000. But keep in mind that the last three things on the estimated cost of attendance, so the books and supplies, transportation, and personal expenses, you can subtract that from the remaining amount, because those expenses aren't going to be billed directly to your school. So if you want to know exactly how much you have to pay in order to cover all of your billed expenses, then you can subtract that amount from your estimated remaining costs, and it will tell you exactly how much you will have to pay in order to cover all of those billed expenses. So this is a good thing, like when you're thinking about applying to schools. I suggest going to each school website and pulling up their net price calculator and just getting a rough estimate of how much you'll receive, and how much it'll cost you to cover those billed expenses, because the main goal is to make sure that you have enough money to cover all of your billed expenses, and that way you'll make the best decision financially when it comes to choosing a college. So the big question is, how will we pay for school? As you've seen, college is very expensive, and like I said before, you'll never pay that price directly out of pocket. There's tons of money out there for you all to get as much help as possible when paying for school, and that comes in the form of financial aid. So financial aid is just any type of money or sources that assist you and your family with paying for college. So this can be in the form of scholarships, grants, loans, even if you have a graduation party and your family and friends give you money, give you some cards with some money in it, that is all included in financial aid. So there are two different categories when talking about financial aid. You have your need-based financial aid, and you also have merit-based. So need-based is resources that'll help cover your costs, and this is directly depending on your family's financial status. And then you also have merit-based, which is like awards earned based on like your talent or performance. And then the different types of financial aid, you have gift aid, and you also have self-help. So gift aid is free money. So whenever you see grants and scholarships, you want to make sure you accept all of that first, because those are things that you're not going to have to repay upon graduation. So you want to make sure that you tap into all of the grants and scholarships first. And then self-help, if you still need money to cover your expenses, then you can take out loans, and also you can apply for work study. So when dealing with loans, you always want to make sure that you go to federal loans first, and that comes from filling out the FAFSA. You don't want to go to any private lenders, because their interest rate on those loans are very high, and they're not as forgiving. So you always want to make sure that you take out federal loans first. And with federal loans, there are two types of federal loans. You have your subsidized loans, and you also have unsubsidized loans. So subsidized loans, the government actually pays the interest rate while you're in school, so you don't have to worry about your loan accumulating interest while you're in school. And so you'll take out a certain amount, and then upon graduation, it'll be the same amount that you took out. But then once the longer it takes, it'll accumulate interest then. But and then unsubsidized loans, the loan starts accumulating interest while you're in school. So you'll take out a certain amount, and once you graduate, it'll actually be more than what you took out. So you want to make sure that if you do need loans, that you definitely take out federal loans, and then take out subsidized loans first. And then if you still need additional money, then you can tap into that unsubsidized loan. And then work study, when you're filling out your financial aid, it'll ask you if you would like to be considered for work study. You want to make sure that you always check yes for being considered for work study, because work study is financial aid, but it comes in the form of you have to get a job on campus to receive the money. So if on your financial aid award letter, your school will award you, let's say, like $2,000 in work study. In order to receive that money, you actually have to find a job on campus and start working. It'll come in a form of like a regular paycheck. But you always want to make sure that you get considered for work study, because if you need that money, it's there for you. You want to make sure that you say yes to the money now, and then deny it later if you don't need it. But you never want to pass out on some money and you need it later and then it's not available to you. So just put yes for work study. And then there are 4 different sources of financial aid. You have federal, that comes from filling out the FAFSA each year. You'll be able to receive Pell Grant, or you'll be considered for Pell Grant once you fill the FAFSA out, and then also the federal loans. And then you also have state aid. So if you're planning on going to in-state school, so a Maryland college, you can be considered for state aid. And there are 2 grants that you'll be considered for: the EA grant, which is $3,000, and then the GA grant, which is like a little over $19,000. So when you're filling out your FAFSA and you're selecting the colleges that you're planning on applying to, you want to make sure that you put at least 1 Maryland school, so that you can be considered for state aid. Even if you are 100% thinking about going out of state, you just want to make sure that you put at least 1 Maryland school down so you can get considered for that money. Because if things fall through and you have to go to a Maryland school last minute and you didn't put it on your financial aid, you won't get considered for that money and can lose out on potentially $19,000. So definitely make sure you put at least 1 Maryland school on the financial aid. And then you'll also receive possibly some grants and scholarships from your institution. And then CollegeBound, we also have tons of competitive scholarships, and we also have a last dollar grant that you can apply for in December. So you just want to make sure that you're aware of all the financial aid that is out there for you all, and that you are applying to everything that you possibly can, because as you saw before, college is very expensive. And I know I didn't have $60,000 lying around just for 1 year to go to school. So the FAFSA opened up on October 1st. So if you haven't already, you definitely want to make sure that you get started on that, because it's first come, first serve for aid. So you want to make sure that you are getting all the required documents together and you are starting on that. So the process will be a lot smoother. And then a CSS profile is required for some schools in Maryland. I know Loyola is one of them. If you're planning on going to Loyola, you'll have to create a CSS profile. And then if you're not eligible to receive financial aid, but you're able to be considered for in-state tuition, you have to complete the MISPA. The web address for the FAFSA is studentaid.ed.gov. You want to make sure that you're going to the correct website when you are filling out the FAFSA, because there are a lot of sites out there that are trying to scam students. So if they ever ask you for credit card information, don't enter it, because the first letter on the FAFSA is free. So you want to make sure that you're not paying for anything. And FAFSA is free, and it's a gateway to financial aid. It's completed October 1st and through March 1st of your senior year. And that's the web address for the FAFSA again. So the first step of starting to fill out your FAFSA is to create your FSA ID. You have to have your phone number, your first name, your date of birth, social security number, contact information, and challenging question, both you and your parents have to create an FSA ID. It serves as your legal signature. So at the end, when you are signing, or when you're done completing your financial aid, you'll have to sign it using your FSA ID. If you have a federal student aid PIN, you'll be able to enter it and link it to your FSA ID. And you can still create a FSA ID if you forgot or if you don't have your PIN. And also for your parents, if you have like an older sibling that's already in college and your parents had to create an FSA ID for them, they don't have to create another one. They'll use that, the same one that they already created. And you want to make sure that you're writing down your FSA ID, like your username and your password, because you'll need it every single year that you have to fill out the FAFSA. And it can be very annoying when you can lock yourself out, and it take a very long time just to reset your password. So you want to make sure that you and your parents both remember your username and your password. So there is a student part and there is a parent part. For the student, you need your address, your email, social security number, date of birth, etc. The first couple of questions can be a little bit tricky. So when it asks you your grade level for the following school year, you want to make sure that you choose never attended college and that you're a first year undergrad. Even if you have some college credits, you still want to make sure that you select never attended college and that you're a first year undergrad. And then when it asks you which degree you'll be pursuing, if you're going to a 4-year, you want to select first bachelor's degree, or if you're going to a 2-year, so community college, you want to select first year associate degree. And then remember to click yes for work study, and then you'll need your income, like your taxes from 2019. So when you're filling out your FAFSA, it's always going to be the year prior. You'll need the tax return from the year prior. So it'll ask you to enter all of the colleges that you want to receive your FAFSA information. Like I said before, make sure that you select at least one Maryland school to be considered for Maryland state aid. And then you also want to make sure that you select living on campus when it asks you about your living arrangements. Even if you're not sure, you can make changes later. You just want to get considered for the most financial aid. And like I said, you want to say yes to or be considered and say yes for the money now, and then turn it down later rather than needing it later, and then it may not be available to you. And then also it'll ask you some dependency questions. So to be considered an independent student, one of these following things will have to apply to you. So if both of your parents are deceased, if you're at least 24 years old, if you're a vet, orphan, ward of the court. So if any of these apply to you, you will be considered an independent student and you will not have to answer questions about your parents. But if none of these apply to you, you will have to answer questions about your parents. And then when deciding on who to put on the FAFSA, if your parents are living together and legally married, you'll have to answer questions about both of them. If your parents are living together and they're not married, you'll still have to answer questions about both of them. And if you have a step parent who is married to the legal parent whose information that you're reporting, then you'll have to answer questions about that step parent as well. So if your parent is widowed or was never married, you'll have to answer a question about just that one parent. And if your parents are divorced or separated and don't live together, you'll only have to answer questions about the parent who who you live with the most during the past 12 months. So if the following people have not legally adopted you, you do not have to put them on the FAFSA. So if your grandparents, foster parents, legal guardians, older brother, sister, aunt and uncle, if they didn't legally adopt you, then you don't have to put their information on the FAFSA. And if they adopted you after the age of 13, then you don't have to put them either. But if they adopted you before the age of 13, you would have to put their information on the FAFSA. So if you filed your taxes from the prior year, you can use the IRS data retrieval tool. This is highly recommended. This tool links directly to your tax return. You will just have to enter. You have to use the exact address that you used on your tax return. So it has to be spelled exactly the same. If you spelled out Avenue on your tax return, when you go to link your use the IRS data retrieval tool, you don't want to abbreviate it. So you want to make sure everything is exactly spelled out the same on your tax return, and then it'll link directly to that tax return, and then it'll autofill it on the FAFSA. So that'll eliminate a lot of human error. So you won't type in the wrong amount, and this will lower your chances of getting flagged for verification. So you want to make sure that if you filed your tax return, that you link it to the link it by using the IRS data retrieval tool. So the final part is to sign and submit. You want to make sure that you review all of your answers, and then you make any necessary changes before you submit your application, and then you and your parent will use the FSA ID to electronically sign the FAFSA. And then once you submit the FAFSA, you will get a confirmation page, and on this confirmation page, you will find an estimate of your eligibility for the Pell Grant and also student loans. And it'll also provide you your expected family contribution. You want to make sure that you print this page out. And then a few days later, once you submit your FAFSA, you'll get a student aid report. And this will also give you your EFC, or expected family contribution. This will go to your family in each college that you listed on your FAFSA. And next to the EFC, if you see the zeros, this is the only time you want to see zeros when it is referring to money. The lower your EFC, the higher you'll receive in Pell Grant, and then the higher you receive in the higher your EFC, the lower amount that you'll receive for Pell Grant. So if you have a 0 EFC, you'll get the full Pell Grant, and then it'll be calculated based on that. And if there is an asterisk or a star next to your 0, that means you actually got flagged for verification. So as soon as you get your student aid report or that confirmation page, you want to check to see if you have a star next to your EFC, because that means you got flagged for verification, and there are some documents that you need to get together in order for the school to send you your financial aid award letter. So some common errors when filling out the FAFSA: people put the wrong social security number, they reverse the first and last names, they put the parent income for the students section, they leave answers blank. So you want to make sure that you're taking your time in filling out the FAFSA, because you don't want to make any errors, and because that can get you flagged for verification, and you'll have to go through a very long process just for a common error, and that could have been prevented if you would have taken your time. So you just want to make sure that you are taking your time when you're filling out the FAFSA. And as I mentioned before, for students who qualify for in-state tuition but aren't eligible for federal funding, you will have to fill out the MISFA. You have to create an MD CAPS account, and that's where the MISFA will be. Even if you're eligible to receive federal funding, you want, and you're if you're applying for Maryland schools, you still want to make sure you create an MD CAPS account, because this is where you'll go to accept your state aid. So you want to make sure that that account is created. And then the CSS profile that I mentioned before, it's a lengthier application and similar to the FAFSA. If you're going through, like I mentioned, Loyola was one of the schools that required a CSS profile. This is not a free application, but you can get a fee waiver for it. And then you want to make sure that you just have all of your documents in order. So the FAFSA isn't a long application. It's only long when you're missing documents. So if you have everything that you need in order, the process will go a lot quicker. So you'll need your social security number, driver's license, W-2 forms, federal income tax return, untaxed income records, alien registration card if that applies to you, and then court documents if that also applies. And then I mentioned before that it is, you want to make sure that you're going to the right website. It's not .com, not .net. They'll never ask you for credit card information. So if the site you're on asks you for anything about a credit card, you're on the wrong site. And then verification. So as I mentioned before, if you have a star next to your EFC, that means you've got, you've been selected for verification. This is the process of just confirming that the information that you put on the FAFSA is accurate. You'll have to submit all of these documents to all the schools that you put on your FAFSA, and all of the guaranteed access grant students. So that's that large $19,000 for the state aid that I mentioned before. Will have to go through verification. Some of the documents that you'll need if you are selected for verification is tax transcript, the IRS 9 fileless form, sorry, 1 second. The school counselor's form with the student's transcript, including the first semester grades, the independent student form, if that applies to you, and then documentation, low income form. So you want to make sure that as soon as you see the asterisk, that you start getting all of these documents together, and you reach out to the financial aid. Well, they'll reach out to you, but you want to make sure you're checking your email to make sure that if they requested certain documents from you, that you have it together to get to them. Because the longer you take to give them these documents, the longer it'll take for them to give you a financial aid award letter. And you cannot get a financial aid award letter if you got selected for verification until you finish. And the goal is for after filling out your financial aid is to receive a financial aid award letter from your schools. So what happens next? Your student aid report is generated and emailed to you and all the colleges that you put on the FAFSA. And then the colleges will determine your financial need by subtracting the cost of attendance and the expected family contribution. And that's how they get your financial need. And then the college will send you a financial aid award letter. And you want to make sure that when you receive your financial aid award letters from each school, that you're comparing all of them and see who's packaging you the best. Because sometimes it's not about which school is cheaper, but about which school is giving you the most money to attend. So you don't want to ever make a commitment to a college before you get all of your financial aid award letters. Because you never know, maybe the school that you really want to go to will give you more money than the school that, you know, everyone's trying to talk you into going. So you just want to make sure that you're comparing all of your financial aid award letters and making the best decision financially. So I mentioned the EFC before, so that's the expected family contribution. And this is a measurement of your family's financial strength, and it's based on your family's tax and untaxed income and assets, your family size, the number of family members who will be in college during that year. So the school uses your EFC to determine your federal student aid eligibility, and they use that for the financial aid award letters. So on the FHEC website, that's where you'll go to accept your EA grant and your GA grant, and also the tuition waivers and workforce shortage student assistant grant, and then the unique major will also be on the MHEC website. So I mentioned the financial aid award letter before. This is an example of a financial aid award letter from University of Maryland College Park. This is for the year 2015 to 2016. As you can see, the cost of attendance that year was a little over $27,000. The student's EFC was 0, and there's no asterisk next to the 0, so that means that the student wasn't flagged for verification. And based on the information that they put on their FAFSA, they were awarded. And just to mention, for the financial aid award letter, is always going to be broken up by semester. So if you get like a scholarship for $3,000, you'll get $1,500 for the fall and $1,500 for the spring. So it's always going to be broken up by semester. So this student was awarded $3,000 for Maryland. The EA grant was awarded $6,100 for the federal Pell Grant. At that time, that was the maximum amount of Pell Grant. It's a little more now. And then University of Maryland also offered them $5,000 for an institution award. And then they're also offered $3,500 for the year for federal direct subsidized loan. So that's the loan that the government is paying the interest while in school. So if you would need that full $3,500 to cover any expenses, you want to make sure that you accept the subsidized loan first, and then if you still need money, you can tap into the $2,000 for the unsubsidized loan. That's going to be the one that accumulates interest while you're in school. And then also keep in mind that the student was offered a little over $5,400 for federal direct plus loan. You want to make sure that you stay away from this loan at all costs. It's a parent plus loan, and it is based on your parents' credit. So you actually have to get approved to receive this loan. And so when you are looking at your financial aid award letter, I suggest not even adding this when looking at your total financial aid. I would subtract that amount from the total financial aid, because you do have to get approved for that loan. So you don't want to, add any financial aid when trying to compare schools if you're not certain that you'll get that money. And I would also subtract the work study amount from the financial aid award letter too, that $2,000, just because, as I mentioned before, you have to get approved for, well, you have to get a job on campus in order to receive that $2,000, and it will go towards your indirect expenses, so your books and your travel and personal expenses. So when I'm looking at a financial aid award letter and I'm trying to compare and contrast them, and you're looking at the total financial aid award letter, automatically I start subtracting the federal the direct plus loan and also the work study, so that you're not accounting for any money that you may or may not receive. All the other awards, so like all the grants and other loans, it's a definite, and that's something that you are being offered, and you don't have to apply for any of that. So you just want to keep that in mind when you're looking at your financial aid award letters. So the big question is, what do you do when your financial aid award isn't enough? You want to make sure that you contact the financial aid office. You can set up an appointment, email them, call them, and then file an appeal asking the financial aid office to review your award, because you never know, you could potentially receive more money. Don't be shy about asking for help. You never know until you ask. When you don't ask, that's a definite no. So you want to make sure that you're asking for help when you need it. All right, so just keep in mind that from October to January, you want to make sure that you complete your FAFSA and the CSS profile if you need to. Then you'll receive and review the student aid report. You'll complete verification if you're selected, apply for Maryland state scholarships on MD-CAPS and other scholarships such as CollegeBound. Our competitive scholarships open up December 1st. And then mid-March and April, you'll receive all of your financial aid award letters. If for some reason your school didn't send you your financial aid award letter by mid-March and April, you want to make sure that you're contacting the financial aid office and seeing what the holdup is, because you want to make sure that you have your financial aid award letter before you commit to any school. And then May 1st, you'll choose your school, and then you'll complete any pending processes, and then you'll renew your FAFSA every single year. So you'll have to go through this each year. So just keep that in mind and make sure, like I mentioned before, that you're saving all of your usernames and passwords. All right, and now is the time for questions. If for some reason, if you can't think of any questions now, you can always contact us through the Scholar account. It's scholar@collegeboundfoundation.org, and we'll respond to your questions there as soon as we can. But we can take questions now if you all have any.
That was a lot of information. So I know that at least a couple of you, is there a raise hand feature here? I think so. When you click on it. So let me see, do it this way. Raise your hand if you got this stuff down pat and you know exactly what you're doing.
And the reaction button's at the bottom of the screen. You can give me a thumbs up, raise hand, get asked questions in the chat.
Okay, we have one. So that's Derek, and let me see who else. Can't see on here. Derek raised his hand. I think one other person raised their hand. Actually, I will stop the recording. Do you want to stop cloud recording?